What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's the good word, Just fans? It's your boy DKB here. You guys might see a couple different backgrounds over the next week or so. By the way, we're finalizing a move into our new home. So if you see any clutter, please excuse it. But with that said, I wanted to share the game plan really over the next couple weeks to a month is I want to push out as much relevant general manager news for you guys as possible because there's a strong crowd of people that feel like Woody Johnson is a huge roadblock in the way of getting anybody viable in that GM chair that can really help shift the culture, implement some new policies and procedures, if you will, to try to avoid a lot of these things like the leaks that Aaron Rodgers mentions and just really a lot of the outside noise as it pertains to the media world, right? And then, of course, we want to see us to continue have some relevance of strength when it comes to drafting. I don't want us having to go back to relying on free agency, searching for these huge big ticket, names that are, dwindling value, right? Guys that have been with their franchises for 12, 15 plus years. And now that they're ready to move on, I would take that as a strong sign moving forward that other teams should be overly cautious unless the fit just seems absolutely perfect. With that said, though, for our general manager opening, I was listening to a ESPN show. This is football. They had Jeremy Fowler on, and this was today, at least yesterday by the time that you guys see this. And he was speaking about the opening, right? What it looks like, what is the current thought process. And he mentioned that many executives around the league covet the GM job, which maybe it's a revelation to some. I've kind of shared similar updates in the past here, but one of the new pieces of information that he threw in is that there's been a lot of comps, a lot of comparisons to the Houston Texans job when D'Amico Ryans took over, and I think it was Phil Caserio over there. So needless to say, it's a huge comparison for us because it means that most people view this as the New York Jets just didn't have the right leadership in the way. And then, of course, as part of that conversation as well that came up, many people feel like, for the most part, the New York Jets are at least a young quarterback away from being a perennial up-and-coming team, right? A 2, 3, 4, 5 year window where you're just completing for playoff spots, cheap roster, can really build things around the young guy and then take off from there and see how you handle, one of those crazy $300 million plus contracts, right? But to me, this is huge. When you look at the Texans job as well, I don't think anybody would have expected that turnaround to go as smoothly, as quickly as it did, especially thinking that you have a defensive-minded guy in the lead chair, right? So when you think about the New York Jets and some of the early names that feel like they're front runners for us, Aaron Glenn as a head coach being the prime candidate so far, you feel like you can have the same effect here. Again, I think a lot of this is more so dependent on the general manager than maybe necessarily the head coach, because to be honest, we'll see what other positions open up, and we know they're going to open up, right? You look directly at the top 10 teams. You have the Raiders that generally may end up having a head coach vacancy. We'll kind of have to see what happens there. But obviously you have the Giants as another prospective team. So, I mean, you can go on and on down the list. But as it stands right now, there's really only a handful of teams that are actively looking and putting together plans in place for who they want their top candidates to be, and then, of course, analyzing how interviews and resumes and such go from there. So, to me, this is huge news. It's huge news that is the general perspective of some of these guys that are going to be walking into our facility within a couple of weeks here and taking more interviews. Now, one of the final tidbits around this is the fact that as it pertains to Woody Johnson, I've flushed out kind of a lot from what I've seen so far here as well. Woody Johnson isn't viewed as a roadblock, for one. And two, Jeremy Fowler even broke it down in more of a layman's terms, right? He mentioned that even with Woody Johnson meddling, it's not necessarily considered harmful in the way of rebuilding, in the way of a general manager coming in and maybe having to babysit or something like that. I don't really have anything to go off, right? Because it's not like I'm diving heavily into these other teams. But he did mention that Woody Johnson is perceived in the same light that many of the other owners in the NFL are, in that they're spending millions, hundreds of millions or whatever you have for these teams. And the general perspective is that they shouldn't do absolutely anything for it, right? There should be no meddling. There should be no, taking ownership of certain decisions that are made. Leave it to the football people and just watch the games, right? So basically, they're glorified fans that just happens to benefit from all of the fandom, right? So I think in that vein, he mentioned a couple other names like the Browns owner, the Panthers owner, Tepper, and the Colts owner, and I can't remember who they all happen to be right now, but he mentioned that everybody's kind of in this pool, right? 10 to 15 owners or so. And yes, some of these guys meddle, but you see some of these guys progressing and stuff. And that's kind of the lane that you want to see Woody Johnson go towards, where he understands, okay, I stepped in at these certain points and I didn't quite get the results that we were wanting, expecting, or hoping for. Here's the next alternative as it comes to the football people that I've hired, and really relying and letting those decisions lay in their hands, right? And then the final piece is really that many people, even with Woody Johnson, and who knows, maybe he gets a late appointment somewhere from Trump or something, but many people actually favor the brother more so than they favor Woody Johnson. So Chris Johnson, in many potential GMs' eyes, is the favored co-owner, if you will. I'm not sure where he falls in that hierarchy, but he's the favored Johnson brother that they would prefer to deal with, right? As the guy that fits the mold of, let me lay back, as long as the decisions make sense, you can explain it to me, walk me through the program, etc. Maybe I have some questions, but for the most part, I can understand I can understand how all the pieces fit together and what we're expecting to see work out, right? So I don't know, maybe a part of what happens with this new regime is maybe there is a little bit of a shift, right? Maybe Chris does get more of a bump up, and it probably won't be 50-50 or anything, but maybe he becomes more so the public face of the Jets, and Woody Johnson can still do all of some of the tampering within the organization, whatever you want to call it. But he'll be more of background noise and not necessarily a forefront distraction, right? So with that said, let me know what you guys think, because I know I've seen the list of some of the names and candidates that supposedly leaked that are coming out. But again, we're talking about a little over 2 weeks here from hearing some real significant news about what the New York Jets candidates are going to look like that are coming through the door next, that are actually employed in the NFL, right? Love some of the names like Dimitrov, for example. But I want to see some of these guys that actually have been in the job, right? They've actually been the assistant general manager within, the last couple years or so. And in many cases, they've sat in their positions for over a decade. So looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys think, though, and I'll catch you again. Peace.